In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Google Sheets as a collaborative document with your students in order to create a project or report progress tracker. And I actually did this as an experiment this past year, and I used it for my second quarter book report. And the book report was entirely digital. It was all on Google Classroom, and it worked very well. And as you can see, I have my progress tracker. That's the first thing that students were in charge of managing, and then I have the actual book report, which was done in Google Slides, and I shared an individual copy with each student. So I created the template and then shared it out to each student, and they received their own copy to work on. And then I also created a rubric for them and distributed that to each of their folders, so they each got their own individual copy of the rubric, and then there was a notes pack that they were responsible for filling out. But let's talk about the progress tracker. So let's take a look at this sheet. And the purpose of the sheet is twofold. It's essentially for students to maintain a timeline for projects, long-term projects, and kind of put the onus on them to set goals for themselves and meet those goals and track their own progress as they complete a long-term project. The second portion of it is for me to get information from them. So whatever book they've selected, I can say yay or nay to. I can take a look at how they've planned their project and see if they're on track. I can kind of track them as they go to check in with them and say, hey, I see that it's now, past the day that you're supposed to have your book finished, and I noticed that you didn't finish it yet. So it's kind of a quick glance for me to help them manage long-term projects, but really put the onus on them to do it. And this definitely will help those kids that have executive functioning issues and need that timeline and those frequent check-ins in terms of staying on track. And they definitely, once they're walked through how to maintain the spreadsheet, they do very well with this. So this looks very confusing at a glance, but I'm just going to go through and show you how I organized it. So essentially what I did was I created this spreadsheet in Google Sheets. So from my drive, I just went to my new button and then opened up a new sheet. And I created different columns that were holding different information for me. So for instance, the first two columns have the student's name, and the third column has the book that they selected for their specific book report. And this can work for anything. You could, instead of having a book selected, you could have the topic selected. It definitely has legs. So here's where they communicated to me what book and author that they have chosen for their book report. And the way I set up the spreadsheet was essentially I went to the due date that I was aiming for, so they should have their book read and their project done, which was also a digital component, by 2/6. So then as I set up the spreadsheet, I backed everything up by date to kind of give them a few goals to meet as they worked along to finish their book and their project. So I gave them the guidelines, but what I really wanted them to do was to create their own timeline. So I told them by 1/16 they had to have a goal, and based on the number of pages in their book, they came up with how many pages they should have read on the 16th. And then they broke their book down and set all of these goals for themselves as they went along. So this was kind of a working document that they used and I used to track the project. So a little trick that I use to keep it kind of organized in terms of making sure students were working on the right line when they were going in to enter their goals, is I had each student pick a color, a different color, and highlight the background of each cell across the sheet that was their cell. And so basically when they open their spreadsheet, their eye goes to their color, and they're able to just make sure that they work along that particular line when they're entering their goals. The other thing that I had them do was also, after they completed each goal, they turned the background color of the cell under the goal white. So they just went up to the paint can, and I showed them how to do this, and they turned the goal white, and that's why most of these cells are white. As they progressed, each cell moving to the right became white. and it was kind of like a little checkbox as they moved through the project. So I was able to share out this collaborative document in Google Classroom. If you don't have G Suite or Google Classroom, you could still manage it just by sharing the document with your students. You could also just grab the link, and you can put the link in the actual presentation, the book report template or the book report explanation, or if you have a Google Doc that you have your report guidelines on, you could put it there. But if I just grab the shareable link and I go into my book report and create a new page, a new slide, and then just insert my link and then paste the URL there and create some text like project tracker, I can pretty much put the link to the project tracker anywhere. So that's just a unique way to kind of keep track of student work and create a collaborative document where students set goals for themselves, but you also can check in with them in a digital way to follow along with their progress.